All right, everyone, we are live, supposedly. Keep in mind, I've got to make sure everything's muted here. Got to make sure that we're live on Rumble as well. It should take. Sometimes it has a few problems. We'll reload that. Please stand by. I have to do this every single time I stream. And a reminder, of course, I will stream tomorrow with the normal Super Chat Q&A. This one's a little bit different because mainly I cover news, etc. And it doesn't appear to be taking, actually. Give me a moment. We got some boomerism going on here. Come on, you know you want to give me the live chat. You know you want to show me the live stream. Well, live chat is on anyway in Rumble. I don't see the video actually yet. One more try. There is a delay involved with these things, sadly. Come on. Yeah, I don't know if we're going to be live on Rumble. To all of you on Rumble, please do tell me in the chat. Am I actually live? Who knows? Someone says, yep, it's good. J Shred's actually on there. Anyway, the main crux of this, we're going to analyze the article made by Stuart Thompson of the New York Times, no less, name dropping me and quoting me in an article regarding DuckDuckGo and my thoughts about that. I will be doing super chats, though, as well, of course. I will try to get to them all. Whether I do get to them all or not remains to be seen, of course. It can be a little troublesome, especially on Rumble. Keep in mind, if you send a chat on Rumble, if I'm trying to look at like a previous chat and I have to drag it up a little bit, it will take it all the way down to the bottom. It's the biggest tech problem that they have. And apparently I am actually live on Rumble. Yes, indeed. Now it's finally showing up. Only a minute belated. That's not that bad a delay. Rumble does need to work a little bit on the boomer friendly side of its live streaming. If it can do that, it'll be perfect. Anyway, we'll get to a few super chats here first, and then we'll launch right into Stuart Thompson's piece. I'll be reading parts of it verbatim, including his Twitter thread on it. Adonis Adams, my birthday is in 3 days. Well, happy birthday to Adonis Adams there, a true clanker. Nesquick, calm down, Sticks. You look heartbroken that the New York Times doesn't like you. It's okay. We'll get through this together. Actually, as I will analyze, the article itself is better than much of what is on the New York Times. By legacy media standards, it's a decent article, but there are still some propagandistic elements to it, so we will analyze them. Batman, will Ukraine take back Crimea if the Ukrainians manage to stomp the Russians? Unlikely, because that would involve invading the sovereign territory, claimed and held for half a decade, of course, of a nuclear power. That wouldn't be wise. Rob S., everyone should support Sticks. I've been a Patreon supporter for a few months now. Good seeing you live. Well, thank you very much for that. Also, I am on Subscribestar. You can look me up there and others. Subscribestar takes a little bit more of a cut, but it is a free speech, a new tech site. Sort of like, you remember Patreon, and Patreon folded because they couldn't find a new payment processor. Subscribestar managed to make it work. Anyway, just a second here. We're going to go to, which one should we do first? I guess we'll go to the article first. I'll get to super chats in a bit. This was Stuart Thompson's article. This is the title. The far right complains after search engine DuckDuckGo vows to limit Russian propaganda. Subtag here, the backlash underscored the difficulties some technology companies face in limiting the spread of Russian propaganda. Now, Stuart, to his credit, did an article here that is less propagandistic than much of what you would see on the New York Times. I'll give him credit for that. I think the worst part of the article is the image they used for Weinberg, DuckDuckGo's main leader. His interior decor style is, shall we say, a little bit odd. There's some clashing colors there, and I don't know. There's something wrong with that. He needs to improve his game. We'll read a little bit of this. By Stuart A. Thompson, March 11th, 2022. Far-right influencers have often encouraged people to use the small, privacy-focused search engine DuckDuckGo instead of Google, saying the giant search engine censored conservative ideas. The praise for DuckDuckGo turned to outrage this week, though, after the company said Russian disinformation would be minimized on its site. DuckDuckGo's chief executive, Gabriel Weinberg, tweeted on Thursday that the search engine would rank websites associated with disinformation lower in its search results. Like so many others, I am sickened by Russia's invasion of Ukraine and the gigantic humanitarian crisis it continues to create, he wrote. DuckDuckGo has little control over its search results because they are provided by Microsoft's Bing, which announced it would follow European Union's order to restrict access to the Russian state news agencies RT and Sputnik. But the criticism from the far right was directed at DuckDuckGo. The conservative website Breitbart said DuckDuckGo was adopting the censorship policies of big tech. In social media channels devoted to conspiracy theories, users vowed to switch to alternatives like the Russian search engine Yandex. The hashtag DuckDuckGone trended across Twitter in the United States by Friday, and on YouTube, users criticized the company for silencing voices. Here's my quote. And the cat is whipping its tail around like an ankylosaurus at the moment, knocking things down. So if you're using DuckDuckGo, I suggest you stop using it and switch to something else, said Tarl Warwick, a self-described libertarian YouTube user with nearly 500,000 followers. He added, I want tens of thousands of people to stop using it. Now, I'm going to end you there. I've got several thoughts about this. Number one, that is a real quote. It's not false or anything like that. It is out of context, and I'll provide that context a little bit in the course of this live stream. Here's the thing. You've got several problems so far. Number one, the title of the article, The Far Right Complains as the search engine vows to limit Russian propaganda. Now, first and foremost, you're making the excuse that they're pegged to Microsoft, and Microsoft, through Bing, which it takes its results from, has said that they're going to derank the material. So which is it? Is DuckDuckGo making a front-end effort to end or limit disinformation, the spread of that material? Or is it just hapless? Is it just because Bing happens to be doing the same thing, they're pegged to Bing, and therefore there's no other alternative for them? I find it funny for a New York Times article to be defending effectively DuckDuckGo, because I remember that the legacy media hated DuckDuckGo years ago. Here's the other thing, people complaining about it. Now, I have never really actively used DuckDuckGo, but I'm quoted in the article. My thing was I used Start Page back in the day, back when DuckDuckGo was being pushed more, generally speaking. And that was years ago. I mean, it's not a new thing, DuckDuckGo being pushed by the far right to escape Google censorship. Dude, 2020 or 2019 called and wants its relevancy back. DuckDuckGo has not been pushed the same way in recent times. It was pushed initially because of the algorithmic demotion of independent content creators, Trump-related content, the missing link media of the right wing, Breitbart and the Blaze and things. Those things were already being hazarded by Google. That's why people started using DuckDuckGo. At the end of this article, he points out, well, they've got 3% of the market share. Try getting 3% of the market share. That's not a small company. 3% of all search engine activity is on your search engine. That's not small. That's what is that? 100 million users probably, or some crazy number like that. At least many tens of millions. It's not a small company. What I would say is this, and I'll reiterate this for the purposes of fact-checking this particular article. The reason that I'm mad at DuckDuckGo is not because I'm a user who's been stiffed, because I'm not a user. It's not because I'm far right. It doesn't even really have to do with libertarianism. DuckDuckGo presented itself as a browser that would be unbiased. They didn't just say, well, we're pro-privacy. That's fine. There are a million browsers, search engines that do that. That's not it. They specifically stated as late as 2019 that one of their problems with Google was the fact that material was not carried the same way, that it was not treated fairly. Now you've got a pig in a poke situation where Russia Today, Sputnik, etc. are being deranked. But that's not the problem. I don't care if the Eastern Bloc legacy media suffers any more than I would care if the New York Times got deranked by a search engine, as it should be, by the way, Stuart. To be clear, the New York Times, your article is better than most, ironically enough, considering the content. CNN, MSNBC, Fox, all of these other networks should be deranked. They should be blocked outright from the internet because it's not independent content. Independent content drives the internet. It's the lifeblood of the entire idea. That's not the problem. The problem is that they said they would be effectively neutral carriers of information. And because of this pig in a pokeism with regards to Russia, they've decided to abandon the concept. It would be just like after 9/11. Imagine 9/11 happens. Now the Twin Towers are burning and everyone's afraid and stuff. And the US government says, well, we need to do more about this Islamic disinformation, this disinformation from Islamo-fascist groups. And DuckDuckGo exists at the time, which it didn't, but let's, argue here as though they did. And they decide, well, this material here, this forum does not block people from saying things that are pro-Taliban. And so we're going to derank them. That would have been a big problem for all the liberals at the New York Times at the time. They would have said that that was a terrible thing, wouldn't they? That's a problem. And I'm going to go through this a little bit. Like so many others, I am sickened by Russia's invasion of Ukraine and the gigantic humanitarian crisis it continues to create, he wrote. Now, again, here's the thing. Stuart Thompson is arguing that the search results are pegged to Bing. And so it doesn't really matter what anything DuckDuckGo wants or does not want to do. Their search results are pegged to an entirely different search engine. If that's the case, number one, why wasn't that stated? Why would they be acting like they're taking credit for stopping disinformation? Number two, why would that be in the article? Well, it doesn't make any sense. Which is it? They're pegged to Bing and therefore, they're just along for the ride. Or number two, they're trying to stop the disinfo. The biggest lie in this entire article, again, about which I have fewer complaints than I expected to have. My quote is not massively out of context, although I will provide some with regards to my thoughts on Ukraine, disinfo, free speech, etc. in my own defense. The idea of the far right complaining. I think you will find that not every user of DuckDuckGo is far right. Again, DuckDuckGo has postured itself. This is the other problem with this article. They've postured themselves in a situation where they're saying our search engine is just pro-privacy. We're Google and or Bing, but we don't collect your user data, which is fine. We're pro-privacy. They're ignoring the fact that for years, they also cast themselves off as effectively a neutral carrier style search engine. That being said, in this particular article, you're begging that same question. Okay, if it's just pro-privacy, if it has nothing to do with unbiased search results, why are people being driven to DuckDuckGo? And where, by the way, is this driving going on? I remember years ago when DuckDuckGo was being memed on 4chan, on other sites, etc. Some of this was organic, some of it probably was not. It was at the same time that people were worried about Google's algorithmic demotion in the wake of Trump, effectively, and even a little bit before that. It even happened before the 2015-2016 era. This is when these alternatives took off because Google was taking user data, etc. Which is it? Is it that they want privacy? In which case, I don't care about the bias part of it. It wouldn't matter because they supposedly never pledged that. You're saying, though, that the site was specifically for that, for the algorithmic side. They're claiming that it's only a privacy search engine. Well, which is it? We're not sure. As far as my own views, I should probably flesh them out before I go any further. To be clear, I have been unabashedly pro-Ukraine because I believe in the sovereignty of the Ukrainian people, and I don't want to see people die. I'm also very anti-war. I'm against the concept of Russia or any other country invading its neighbors. I think it's stupid. I think it's moronic. That being said, I also am deeply against censorship. The problem is that this won't work. Which average Russian? Let's take two Russians, for example. Which one is more likely to understand how to set up a VPN, etc., and continue to engage in the great conversation that is the internet? regular Russian person, they make ASMR videos or some shit. They make videos on how to make vodka. That person or a member of the post-KGB security apparatus of Russia? Well, clearly the latter. They know what to do. They're not being banned by these measures, by this or any other measure in regards to tech. The same with banking. The security agencies, the actual propagandists, the shills that shill for Russian invasion and talk about how Ukraine's full of Nazis, which is extremely ironic, and all of these other things, they're going to keep posting. You can't stop them from posting. They're capable of using a VPN. They're capable of connecting through a remote server in another country. They're not being blocked from the conversation. You're just blocking regular, everyday Russians who aren't part of that, who aren't pushing any line. Those are the people that are being blocked from the conversation. Some random ASMR artist, some random cook that makes Russian recipes on YouTube, some random Twitch streamer, and they happen to be Russian, they do gaming. Twitch is telling them they can't get paid. Which one is actually being deprived? Not the regular person. Not the security person, the regular person. They're the ones that are being deprived. Some of these people are anti-war. They're against what's going on in Ukraine. By the way, in a statement, Camille Bazbaz, the vice president of communications for DuckDuckGo, said that the affected sites were engaged in active disinformation campaigns, meaning they were similar to other low-quality websites already penalized by search algorithms. Yes, we know that's the problem. Google penalizes sites that it perceives or declares are low information, low quality. There's something wrong with them. That's not the way the internet worked back when I was new to the internet. Back then, it was public interest happens to be fixated on a site. People are talking about it. People are sharing it out. People are interacting with it. And so it's higher in the search results. That's the way it should be. I would ask this as well, not just of Stuart, but of other people. Why should tech firms demote anything? Why should they even be involved in this? This is a Ukraine-Russia situation. These are mainly US companies and Western European companies. Why the fuck do they give a shit? Why do they care? Well, again, the situation is not entirely clear. I like how Yandex, by the way, was mentioned. And I mentioned Yandex. It is an alternative to DuckDuckGo. It's not like Google. I'm assuming that it tracks user data. Maybe not to the same degree, but it does. But so does Bing, you know, the foundation of DuckDuckGo, again, supposedly. Startpage doesn't, although they don't have the explicit search results. There's also Ecosia. There's, I think, something called Swiss Cows a lot of people are mentioning now. Never used it, but there are many alternatives, only one of which is Russian-based. I mentioned Yandex specifically because it gives good search results. That's the truth of it. It has nothing to do with wanting to have a slant on what I'm absorbing as far as news or analytical content. In my line of work, I can't have that sort of slant. I have to have everything should be fair. It should be delivered to me according to interest, number one, and according to relevancy, number two. The fact that Google, of all places, declares it to be disinfo means nothing to me. I literally do not care about what Google's opinion is of these things. Yes, and Brave Search by Stecky over there. Brave Search is apparently good. However, I think that their search results, much like with DuckDuckGo, suffer a little bit. I'd use Startpage, honestly. You should all go on to Startpage or Ecosia. I'm going to go through some more Super Chats here, and then we'll get into his Twitter feed on this. Nick Ray, since it's my birthday tomorrow, what I'd like for my birthday from you personally is a good alternative to CuckCuckGo. Brave, Ecosia, Yandex, Startpage. There's a laundry list of great search engines. Again, I used Startpage for several years. I also used to use Pale Moon, which is a derivative of Firefox. I use Opera now, although it's like, well, I really liked Pale Moon more, but the functionality as far as loading pages in some cases was questionable. Some random bloke, do you support Iran getting the bomb? I literally don't care whether they get the bomb. It won't change anything. Dr. Copernicus, hey, Sticks, love you, man. Would love to hear your thoughts on the biolab stuff in Ukraine. The evidence document trail is pretty damning. Clank. Yes, apparently the U.S. set up biolabs in Ukraine. They weren't weapons facilities, but biological laboratories for data sharing in medicine. Can I please ask a question? Why would you set those up near Russia? It didn't make any sense. I don't understand what the point was, and probably some of them were probably set up under Trump. I'm wondering, were you aware of the fact that this was happening? Seems a little bit dangerous to me, but you know, these people are out to lunch. Eric Hecker, non-news shout out. You should try Bloons Adventure Time. They mix RPG level grinding with balloon popping fun. I like Bloons Tower Defense 5. That was the peak Bloons. Vault of the Future. Did you see Trump on the Nelk Boys podcast? LMAO. No, I actually didn't see that, but I did see that they got removed from YouTube, predictably. I think now there's scuttlebutt that he actually will be on Joe Rogan at some point. People can fact check that. Didi Cortez, how long will the current admin keep blaming Russia for all inflation, and how long will lemmings keep believing that's the case? Answer number one, they will continue doing it as long as they can get away with it. Answer number two, probably not that long. The problem is that people begin noticing that prices are rising, gas prices especially. That's a big one. At some point, they're no longer going to be able to credibly claim that Putin did it, which he's not. I mean, again, inflation was already nearing 8% before Putin invaded Ukraine. Inquisitor Jack, merely removing politicians and bureaucrats from office is not a punishment, nor is it sane to allow the bootlickers to continue to have the franchise. Yeah, I know. Adonis Adams, are you going to make an occult video on the mass hysteria surrounding the Ukraine invasion? Well, that's not really occultism, so probably not. M. Freedom, hey Sticks, what do you think about Jehovah's Witnesses and no blood transfusion? Seems ridiculous, especially in a life or death situation. Well, there are some people that care more about their spirit than their physical body, and you can't blame them for that. As long as it's not a kid or something, they're an adult, they're making their own decisions, I don't care. I do think it's kooky. And one time Jehovah's Witnesses showed up in Rutland. This was 5 or 6 years ago. And I came to the door. I was like, oh, yes, this is going to be great. I had my pentagram on and, you know, the leather jacket and stuff. And I said, well, this house is run by Satan. And they left fairly quickly, and I don't think they've been back again. Inquisitor Jack, the need to take the car keys of power from the corrupt, insane political class and their sycophants. They've been drunk on power far too long. Yeah, absolutely. Power corrupts, and they've had a lot of it for a long time. Alexander Emelianov. Hey, Sticks, off topic, but what were your favorite types and brands of wine? Back when I was drinking wine, Apothic Red, but you know, I stopped using red wines because I'd actually get a hangover. Actually, I was like Elizabeth Warren. For a while, I was drinking box wine by Franzia. Jens Peterson, my brother found a meme. Instead of saying Anthony Blinken, say Abe Lincoln. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense, except he's not as intelligent as Abe Lincoln was. Missouri Survival and Outdoors, corporate involvement aligns with ESG scores. I'm not exactly sure what an ESG score is. Autas85, I like that New York Times didn't refer to your YouTube handle. Well, they used my real name, so actually they're promoting my books. The New York Times is promoting this supposedly far-right individual. We'll go on to Rumble here. Oh, I think that there is a Rumble chat. Yeah, and it's right at the bottom. Thank goodness. Joker1, Sticks, you owe me a new keyboard. I spit my coffee all over the old one when you said NASCAR fans should be able to keep Dale Earnhardt's severed head if it flew into the stands. Lol. Yeah, or his hands, or his penis, or, you know, if you can find it, any other body part, actually. Then NASCAR would definitely be much more popular. We're going to go, before I get to these other super chats that are in, we'll go to Stuart Thompson's Twitter rant, actually, about this. He posts his article. Members of the far right have embraced DuckDuckGo. So they were pretty mad when the company announced it would limit Russian propaganda. Again, it's funny that I'm quoted in an article about the far right. Talk about disingenuous. And most people here are ratioing the article and criticizing it. I think he had a couple of comment threads down below, though. I'll try to find them. Yeah. Fearless Ferret replying, you are literally spreading disinformation. Wow. This is not the far right who is worried about this. Why are you trying to outdo Fox News in misinformation? Shameful. Even more shameful is your piece wasn't marked as opinion when objectively speaking, it is. And Stuart Thompson saying, who are you saying is mad? Well, for one thing, tens of thousands of people that follow me, probably, who know that I'm not far right. Yeah, let me make another abortion video so I can lose 10 subscribers. What is far right? Can I ask a question? This is rhetorical because the answer is obvious. What exactly is far right or far left? It's in the eye of the beholder. It depends. Anything is going to be far right or far left to you if you're at the other side of this wonky spectrum. It's just like, as someone who is a classical liberal / mild pragmatic quasi-libertarian, when I looked at someone who's a neoliberal or a neocon, like even like a Republican neocon, like a Dan Crenshaw, I say they're an authoritarian. Now, I'm judging that based on my own views. I use myself as the central basis for what is right. We all do. And it's okay to admit that. I believe that my political views are right, or I wouldn't have those political views. I believe my religious and social views at least approach what is right, or what is more pragmatic or useful. Everyone does. You think that AOC has the same view of what the far right would be as Lindsey Graham? You think that Emmanuel Macron, it's like judging whether you're authoritarian or not. Emmanuel Macron would have a different gauge of what that was than Rand Paul. Well, who's actually right? It's all completely relative. You can only support your own particular views, and you can judge other things by it. If I were to talk about the far right, I would say it was basically ANCAPs. That's the only far right that exists. They want the effective abolition of the state, taxes, etc., and the privatization of everything. I think that's not pragmatic. Now, about the only objective thing you can say when you're talking about these very relative political terms is what has worked historically. I can look at anarchism and say it didn't work. I can look at my own backdrop, my own classically liberal beliefs, and say, hey, it helped to promulgate Western civilization. I think that deviation from that is not necessarily a positive thing. It's historical. I just have to look back at the past. Again, history was written by the victors, so there is another problem. And someone said Clank, Rocky Mountain Reaper. And Stuart Thompson replied, is this a Tarl thing? Yes, by the way. Clank is definitely my thing. And people talking about the failing New York Times and censorship and stuff. Again, let me reiterate. My problem with deranking, demoting, blocking, hiding, fact-checking, labeling, any form of content, it has to do with my opposition to censorship on a historical basis. I've pointed out multiple times. Name for me a single point in history from any antagonist within any struggle, from any state, from any religion, from any social group. Name me one time in which censorship was benevolent and it wasn't being misused by people behind the scenes in one form or another to start a war, to grind people down, to make money, or to promulgate their own views, which in retrospect, 100, 150 years later, we say were evil. It's never been used for benevolent purposes. I don't care if the Russians spread state propaganda. Let them let RT be on all these sites, and I'll go and fact check them myself, and I'll go and ridicule them. That's what should be done. Private individuals are intelligent enough to determine these things themselves. And if they're not intelligent enough, if private individuals cannot be counted on to look at news or so-called news or analysis or whatever, if they can't look at it and determine what is or is not reasonable, number one, they're screwed up. Number two, if the vast majority of the population really is like that, why are you even bothering to fight for liberal democracy? Because it clearly won't work. The public are retards. If the public is comprised of morons of the kind that would necessitate this kind of censorship, democracy will not work. They're going to vote for crazy shit. They're going to vote for dumb shit. But again, this will be left out of the article. The little quote that I put in there, I hold to it. And by the way, to Stuart there, I don't just have 500,000 YouTube followers. How many people are watching me on Rumble right now? Yeah, there's over 500 people just watching me there. Imagine what I could do if I paid for a better version of StreamYard. And I was also on Odyssey and could get a D Live going. 500,000 people is nothing. I've got almost 150,000 at this point just on BitChute. We're getting up towards I think 82,000 on Rumble, over 61,000 hit the other day on Odyssey. A lot of people follow my Substack. I've got WordPress, Blogspot. I'm on Dailymotion. I'm one of their biggest users for what little it's worth. I wish that he had mentioned the fact that I was on New Tech. You could have dovetailed this. Here's advice for Stuart. You want to attack the disinfo thing. Okay. Rumble and Odyssey and all these sites, they're not going to ban Russian so-called disinfo because it would entail banning mainline people from these platforms. And in some cases, they can't do that technologically. In other cases, they're not inclined to do that. You could have attacked New Tech. Well, here's a list of sites that are promulgating Russian disinformation. DuckDuckGo has stood on principle, and its founder has taken up a hard line against evil, not orange orangutan Trump, but bald orangutan, Vladimir Putin, the plastic surgery aficionado, which he does appear to be, the polonium man. They've taken up a hard line in defense of Western liberal democracy. Here's a list of sites that haven't done so. And Tarl Warwick is big on all of these sites. And this is a coincidence. He's basically, he's the new Goebbels or something. You could have reamed me. Actually, I'll give him credit. His article is better than most on the New York Times. Well, let's be honest here. Let's give him a round of applause for making an article that didn't totally suck, in all honesty. We've got some more chats here. Greasus Crust. Who is Terry Mallory tied to Soros and World Eco Forum? His background seems ideal for planning and strategy in a way to right this Disney war. I don't know who that is. I know Soros is, but so I don't know. Mr. Wonderful. People who say buy gold and silver are hilarious. If the dollar collapses, it's game over. Invest in supplies and things that will keep you alive. Well, silver, I will defend gold and silver. They would still be generally accepted as a medium of exchange because of the generally agreed upon value of them. Lead would be more valuable, potentially. 22 rounds, they're profuse, they're fairly cheap, and easily tradable. You can turn a 22 round into a dead rabbit and you can eat the rabbit. Yeah, that's a pretty good exchange rate. Land is one of the important things, but not everyone has it. I hold silver. I have quite a bit of physical silver. I don't like gold, though. And the reason why is you would have to subdivide it into really small pieces to use it, unless it's for big transactions, number one. Number two, I think for spiritual reasons, gold is a corrupting influence. I don't like physically being around gold. I prefer being around silver for a reason. EPC, Superchat. No, thank you. Freedom Autopsy Report. What about Biden and Pelosi plundering Ukraine for years? That they plunder every country. That's not unique. Mr. Twisted Frenzy. If Brandon succeeds in his desire to be a wartime president, will that put him in a better position come 2024, or will it just be more ammo for Trump's return? He won't be the one running, I think, in 2024. And probably not Kamala, considering that she can't get asked a question about dying or suffering children without breaking out into a cackling laugh. I think it'll be some dark horse candidate, some third party, honestly, from the Democrats. They're crazy if they put Biden fourth with this economy. Lucas Zupan. Brave has its own crawlers and blocks all trackers by default. Extensions work, etc. Listen to Joe Rogan episode 1768. DuckDuckGo mooches results. Oh, I didn't know that. But yeah, Brave seems good. It's just that it's not as functional. I prefer Start Page if I'm going to use any alternative browser. Right now I'm using Bing, ironically enough. It's marginally better than Google. What I would say, I mean, imagine you're using DuckDuckGo. The main reason that you're using the browser has just disappeared. What's the fucking point of using it if you're getting worse search results? Just use Google. Be a sellout and just fucking use Google. Or you can make the switch. I remember I had to do that with search engines. I remember it was painful moving from Internet Explorer to Firefox until I realized Firefox was twice as secure and twice as fast. Well, Brave is faster than DuckDuckGo, just to be clear. I think Ecosia probably. Start Page, I think, is a little bit slower, but much better results. Yandex is reasonable, although, again, there's a Russian connection, and there you will see propaganda there. If you care about that fact, just use Google. Mateo C. Are you going to live react today Trump's rally? Probably not, because he holds his rallies, mid-afternoon U.S. time, but that's late at night, my time, because I'm in the Netherlands. It's difficult enough to react to really, really important things. Like Trump holds fairly regular rallies. I'm not saying they're important, not important, but he holds them like, quite a lot. But if Biden comes out and is doing an emergency address or something, my hope is always, he doesn't want too many people to see it, so he's doing it early in the day. That way it'll only be 7 or 8 o'clock my time. Peter Bossan, ESG score is a bogus metric for investors, virtue signaling for money. The more virtue signaling you do, the higher score you get, the more investor-friendly you are. Oh, that explains all the BLM flags on Twitter during Black Lives Matter month. Jay Binks, for in a long time, I thought you already had a baby on the down low. Little did I know that crying that I kept hearing was your cat. What games you playing? Right now, Skyrim, actually. Heavily modded. Don't worry, I'm not playing vanilla. Very heavily modded. Much better graphics, by the way. Jesus. It's like an entirely new game when you plug in a dozen or so mods. Same with Fallout, actually. Ty Sloan, thoughts on recent South Korea poll saying Koreans hate China more than Japan? Well, I don't think that that's regular people hating other regular people. It has to do with the state. By the way, Korea and Japan are tightening relations in reaction to what's going on in China. That's something to watch. Brian Carter, happy Saturday, my dude, or Catterday. Also, look up some Catterday stuff. Go to I Can Has Cheeseburger. See some memes. Ty Sloan, do you think North Korea will make a move before China? Also, Z said Taiwan was a no discussion issue over sovereignty. Yeah, there's no discussion because they don't dare to invade because they're pussies about the issue. They know that the Taiwanese would probably curb stomp them because they don't have as much of a functional navy as Russia has a functional ground force. I think that China is carefully watching what's happening in Ukraine right now and seeing that the Russians, who have legendary numbers of tanks, artillery, rocket launchers, and stuff, are being bogged down by a much smaller group of people. And I think they're thinking to themselves, well, if we do this with Taiwan, we can't just go in by land. We have to have a navy in order to do it. And I think they're hesitant. HF, energy drink funds. Well, thank you for your $9.99. Depending on Biden inflation, I can get 4 or 5 energy drinks for that. So thank you for the caffeine. Maxwell Wishul. Hey, Sticks, I'm going to New Orleans in a few days, and I'm going to see the World War II Museum down there. Any World War Museum sites or memorials that you really liked seeing? I don't think I've ever been to one. I've been to the Plymouth Colony, which is in Massachusetts. I like the Montshire Museum in New Hampshire. It's on the smaller side, but it is really good. It's science and stuff like that. The Ethan Allen Homestead in Vermont is really interesting if you're interested in presidential history. Go there around June when the weather's nice. It's comfy. And they've got a little like a store there. They have saltwater taffy and all the good shit. They have a lot of old-timey food there that's pretty good. Ty Sloan, thoughts on South Korea's new president? Do you think the UN needs reform since Russia is kicked out but China is still in it? Maybe put India in it. You mean the Security Council? Yeah, the UN is stupid. It shouldn't even exist because it's pointless. Nobody cares. South Korea's new president? I have no clue. I'll have to look at that up. By the way, please don't send any more super chats because I'm going to try to get through the ones that are already there. I'm checking over on Rumble. Yeah, my bats are up by $0.68 this morning. Yeah, you should get a disclaimer. This is not official investment advice, but silver's cool. Everyone should have a little bit of silver in case of werewolves. Robot Trucker, how does nudity relate to the occult? It boils down to a personal choice, I suppose. You can be naked if you want. You can be clothed if you want. Being naked sometimes is fun. You know, you take a shower, you probably don't wear your t-shirt in there. Unless there's something wrong with you. Jebediah Kerman, preferred Wikipedia alternative. Conservapedia is a wretched hive of tradcons and boomers. There is no Wikipedia alternative. The basic idea of having like an internet encyclopedia is a doomed one because you go off in one of two directions. You either have everything open, anyone can edit. It's very, very free speechy, like, you know, Wikipedia 10 years ago or 15 years ago. And then it gets defaced and you have edit wars and you have chaos and nobody can really know what's true because people are trying to push their agenda there and then put links to their own websites and the sources and stuff. Or you start doing what Wikipedia has done for the last half decade or so. You start controlling things more and more. Then it's not reliable. It's no longer an open encyclopedic material. It's not necessarily being fact-checked and edited by people who aren't just as biased. It's just that there's less vandalism, but the whole article is vandalism. Josh Eternal, what's your opinion of Brighteon and Storyfire? I've never used Storyfire. I do like Brighteon. I have an account there that I used to use. The reason that I don't upload to Brighteon is simply because I have too many sites to upload to. And I looked at the engagement, I looked at the audience size and so forth, and the benefits versus detriments of using each site. And I determined that Brighteon was less advanced. That's the only reason. I have nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with them, though. But yes, please don't send any more super chats here because I got to get through the last ones here. Banned socks. I know you love linguistics. Thoughts and perversion of the English language and complete redefining of words as well as canceling older terms. Yes, indeed. One of the most potent linguistic traits, linguistic tricks, is to take a word and give it a new meaning so that people that were using it feel bad or they feel good or whatever, to affect people. That's going on all of the time recently. It's very potent, and it should always be pointed out because knowledge is power. Professor Plaguebat, ESG is environmental, social, and governance, a credit system created by the WEF and employed by Vanguard and BlackRock. See, I just don't give a shit what they're doing. You know, there's no chance of reforming what they're doing at the government level, so people should just refuse to do business with them. Javelin X sent $4.99. Thank you very much. No comment. Mad Youper, have you heard the Trailer Park Boys song, Kitty Man Sea Shanty? Fun song. I have no clue what that is, but I'll have to look it up. Audio Anarchy, new to the channel. Thanks for the vids. Do you have advice on how to generally converse with globaloids on current events? Yes, don't bother. Improve yourself instead. Instead of spending hours debating these morons, learn a new skill, plow in an extra row in your garden or something. You know, be the change you want to see in the world. Grow those fucking tomatoes. That's how you do it. Everyone loves tomatoes. Shaker Silver, Ukraine is one more failed regime change of USA with funding extremists and false flags during the 2014 coup. Most corrupt country in Europe for a reason. Well, it doesn't appear to have failed because the Russians are currently failing to invade it. So we'll see what happens. If anything, they're paying in blood. I don't even know what the end goal is at some point. Ty Sloam, how can the rest of Asia be tough on China when China is a massive country? Islands like Japan, Taiwan, and Korea don't have massive populations. Japan doesn't have a massive population? Have you checked their demographics? Taiwan doesn't have to worry. Again, if you're an island, and Korea is not an island, to be clear. Korea is effectively an island unless North Korea gets involved, which would cause a nuclear war. Japan and Taiwan, Japan doesn't worry about invasion. They've got Gundams and shit. If I was in Vietnam, I might be worried because China's already invaded me a couple times, but they won both times against the Chinese with about, 10% of the population. So I don't think that the Vietnamese are too worried. El Presidente. So when are you planning on making a Styx OnlyFans? Need to produce the feet pics. LMAO. You'd be surprised at how many people have actually seriously asked me for shit like that. I'm not into that. I don't want to support OnlyFans and, I don't have a moral problem with it so much as it's just like, it's weird. It would make me feel uncomfortable to get involved with that. I prefer to make real content, things of intelligence, things that matter in the world. There's Victorian era porn. You can see your great grandmother naked probably. Anyway, I think I'm going to go off here. Because we're almost 45 minutes in. This was mostly this was about the New York Times hit piece. Again, I'll put it at a 3 out of 10 on the propaganda scale. It wasn't as hit piecey as some hit pieces. I'll give him credit for that. Reasonably well written, but the insinuation that the far right is pissed off at DuckDuckGo and that it isn't a broad segment of users, all of which are right wing, and then quoting me as though I was one of these right wing people that's pissed off at the site. I'm not a conservative. I don't use DuckDuckGo. I'm not really pissed at them. I'm just pointing out that they're being hypocrites. They're being sellouts. And they are. They pledged that they were going to have an unbiased approach to information that was presented on their site. Now you've got the leader of DuckDuckGo openly proclaiming that that's not the case, that they're going to demote content on effectively a socio-political basis. We then have the defense of them here which is completely contradictory to that line, saying, well, they're pegged to Bing, so it's not really their choice or anything like that. It's these people are angry at DuckDuckGo and taking out their ire on them, but it really has to do with Bing's search engine. So which is it? Effectively, is it that DuckDuckGo is pissing people off legit and they're just Nazis or evil far-righters? Or is it that these people are delusional and it's actually Bing's doing and DuckDuckGo is blameless, and the problem is that they're just mistaken about who's responsible? I never used DuckDuckGo really to begin with. I was a start page user years ago. When the kerfuffle happened with Google, algorithmically demoting content years ago in the first place, it was start page for me. I did not use them. This would be like saying, well, people had flocked to Brave browser, but then Brave did a thing and they didn't like it anymore. Well, I mean, I never really used them either. To be clear, I was a Pale Moon user. Briefly Waterfox, but it's like, yeah. Pale Moon is functional, by the way. You should definitely look into it if you're looking for a new browser. It has a few quirks, though, with regards to delivering content to you. Anyway, yeah. So I'm going to go off now, but this was an interesting chat. I'm glad to all the people that joined up. Almost 3,000 on YouTube and Twitch at peak, and almost 600 on Rumble, or 700 actually. So yeah, again, the audience keeps growing. Probably going to be bigger than the New York Times at some point. So Stuart, yeah, if you need a job in the future, we'll see what we can do. And we've got one more. I'm a song. You won't find us on Alta Vista, the streets. Interesting. That's about all. Peace out.